So without further ado, let me start with our supervisor of elections for Broward County, Florida, Mr. Joe Scott.
I'm not sure if I need the mic. Can you all hear me okay? Can you hear me?
We will need it for the
okay,
for the
got you. Okay. So, hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so thrilled, Bernadette. Thank you so much for inviting me to come out here and to see such a wonderful, lovely, beautiful crowd here. Wish we didn't all have to wear masks today, but unfortunately we do. But so, as she said, my name is Joe Scott, and I'm currently serving as a supervisor of elections for Broward County, Florida, a position that I was elected to last year. My background before coming into office was that I was actually a military officer. I graduated from West Point in 2004, and I served in the Army for 5 years. I rose to the rank of captain before I got out, and including a tour of duty in Iraq, where I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal. So I left the military in 2009, and from leaving the military until I got into politics, I was in the business world. I went to Villanova University, got my MBA, and then I was working for some large corporations and sales and operations leadership roles and, doing the corporate thing. And I really felt a pull back to public service, a pull to do something where I could give back to my community and be part of these challenges that we are working through right now. And that's what led me to run for office last year. And it all worked out, and here we are. And I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you all today about voting rights and what we can do here at the local level to push back on, what's happening, what's coming out of Tallahassee. Thank you.
And Senator, I was just about to say representative, but let me give him some respect. All right, Senator Chevron Jones.
Thank you, Bernadette. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. How y'all doing? Good. My name is Chevron Jones, and I have the pleasure of serving as senator for the 35th Senate District. But before I introduce myself, I do want to thank Bernadette for gathering us all here today for this amazing opportunity to get information out. So thank you. I serve the 35th Senate District, and I have the pleasure of serving in the Florida Senate, where all of the foolishness that you're speaking about is actually happening. But yeah, my background, I graduated from Florida A&M University. My background is biochemistry, molecular biology, where I thought I was going to be a doctor, but that didn't work out that way, as y'all can see from this panel. I went into education instead. Went to teach AP Bio and went to at Everglades High School in Miramar, and went over to FAU High School to teach AP Bio, AP Chemistry. I got very interested in education and just stayed in education to get my master's and working on finishing my 1 year, about 1 year left in the PhD program. Because as I got into the legislature, I started to realize that it was more than just the issues that I was hearing about as far as politics was concerned on the news that needed to be addressed. And my being mad, I tell people all the time, I got into politics because I was mad as hell about something. And so I got into politics. So I ran for office, and we can talk about that story later. But being able to talk about this issue right here, to be dead center in Tallahassee, to understand what my Republican colleagues did, because I want to stay as nonpartisan as possible. Yeah, I gave you a disclaimer, all right? I'm just telling you, I'm going to go left at one point. But, yeah, just listening to my colleagues and what they did in the last legislative session, dealing with an issue that wasn't a broken system. But yet still they found the need to continue to move the goalposts for an issue as we as black Americans is something that we are very clear and very used to because we've seen this issue before. And so I've taken an interest not just in the social justice movement, but anything that's dealing with our people as black folk within our communities, because being able to have a seat at the table, I can tell you that if one person is not speaking up for our issues, we have a problem. And there are many of our individuals, and give me 30 seconds. I'm a church boy, so give me 30 seconds on this one, right? If we are not clear on who we are putting in these offices and who we are electing, not just our friends to put in office, people who are actually carrying the water for our communities, we are wasting our time constantly coming to things and thinking that things will change, and we have the wrong people in power. Those people who say that they're fighting for us. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And I'm Chevron. I'm good to be here with y'all today.
Thank you, Chevron. Senator Chevron Jones. And we have next Cecile Schoon, who is the first Black woman president of the Florida League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Bernadette. Mic's on, right? Okay, good. Wow. About myself. Ooh. I am the daughter of an immigrant. I grew up in another country where Black people and brown people own and run everything in the Caribbean islands. So coming back to my mother was American. Coming back to the States, I had quite a shock. I'm like, what happened? Because the role reversal is so different. When you grow up in a Black nation, a Black or brown nation, your sense of your humanity, your sense of yourself, you're not in a box. You can do anything. There's no one telling you what you got to do or what you can't do in that same sense. So I always tell my white friends and my white husband, I know what it feels like to be white because it's just a complete freedom. So I come at a lot of my experiences in the States since I've been back, my education. I was just absolutely dumbfounded to actually hear and see the civil rights movement and the sacrifices of ordinary people. And I realized in this country, I benefited from everything people had done. The freedom riders, the people who never knew if they were going to make it back home, 19, 20-year-olds just couldn't stand it. They saw the pictures of the dogs biting the peaceful Black people, and they just couldn't live with that. They got involved. And I was just very, very conscious of that. And consequently, I decided I wanted to be a civil rights attorney, which is what my day practice is, employment discrimination. Because I felt like I am just not going to sit around and let you mistreat my people like that. Now, my people are all the 7 protected classes. It's not just race. But that is where my heart is. And I think the combination of growing up in a different nation, a different world, and sort of being able to take the lenses off and understand what's going on here just has really been a fire in my belly. When I had the opportunity to learn more about the League, I liked the fact that they did forums, because I've been a long-term League member, but busy. I was active duty too. I was an assistant staff judge advocate, as some of you might have heard already. But starting a family, doing all those things, I would just be, turn up occasionally for my League meetings. But when I started seeing the League actually take action, like go to court, litigate for people's voting rights, because there've been voter suppression laws before. I mentioned one earlier about with Governor Scott. There's been litigation over early voting, redistricting. It's just been a battle. They don't want the waking up of the common person, of the person who is in the majority. They like having the control, whatever race they are. They don't want to hear from everybody. And that is why with the citizens' initiatives, people work hard to get them passed. We knock ourselves out with these great initiatives, and the legislators turn around and say, I've got implementing legislation. I need to tinkle with that. And they're also keep trying to make it more difficult for the citizens' initiatives to pass. So that is where the confluence of my background, my passion, and the opportunities that the League of Women Voters of Florida have provided me, and there are opportunities available to all of you, and we take men, and my husband's a member, and we have, so we're open to everybody, regardless of race, economic background, or ability. What we bring to the table is that voter registration expertise. We've been doing it forever. We started out educating, fighting for women to vote, and knowing that women, my apologies. Thank you.
We have finally Holly Holliday, who is with Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, and she's a very powerful sister. Let's hear from you, about you, Holly.
Well, I can sum it up really quick. I'm a 3rd-generation politician. I'm a 3rd-generation lawyer, and I love Black people. And because of all 3 of those things and the convergence of those things, I understand what our previous panel shared, my good friend Judy shared about power. And one of the core structural pieces to power is not only dismantling racism, but empowering ourselves through voting. And so that's what I'm here to talk about. And I can wax poetically about all of those things, but let's wait for the questions.
All right. So let's jump right in. So what we're going to do, and I know some of you have PowerPoints and we want to go through those, of course, but I want to get some just basic context questions in that deal with our subject here today, how to outsmart voter suppression. And one of the things that we have to be able to do and maneuver in trying to do that is really dealing with disinformation. And I'm wondering how each one of you in your respective roles, how you're maneuvering to deal with disinformation, because there's a lot of that when it comes to people trying to give bad information because they want to discourage people from voting. So why don't we start with you, Supervisor, and let's go on down the line.
Yeah, this is such an important thing because right now our election system is under attack by people who want to raise doubt. And at the end of the day, a lot of this has to do with whether or not people believe that the system works the way it's supposed to. So just creating that doubt, making people think that maybe the election was stolen, maybe something happened, and maybe the people who are getting elected aren't really the people that the voters chose. It is so destructive to our system that we have to make sure that people know what are reliable sources of information. How do you decide that something is a reliable source of information? What we've done, my office has done to try to make sure that people view us as a reliable source of information is there's a few different steps that we've taken. The biggest step we took was that we actually moved our website actually made it a higher level of security, moving from .org to a .gov. Website. So we're browardvotes.gov now because we found that a lot of people trust the .gov websites because there's a little bit more, it's a lot harder to get that domain. You have to be a government agency to have that domain. So in addition to that, we've taken a very proactive approach to getting on social media, to making ourselves established in that space because it's an information vacuum that a lot of people are getting their information from. So we need to make sure that we're filling that vacuum. Disinformation loves an information vacuum. So if government agencies and reliable sources of information aren't using these social media channels to the fullest, they're allowing the bad actors to take over that space. And I think that one thing that all government agencies could do better is just to really fill that vacuum and make sure that we're not allowing that space to be available to the bad actors.
Testing. So one of the things, a few of the things that we're doing in our office to kind of dismantle misinformation when it comes to voting. The first thing is our office is every other week we're doing emails that go out to our listserv because we do know that people our open rate is extremely high because people want to know what's happening in Tallahassee and what's just happening in the political world. Period. So that's the first thing that we do that we believe that is a touch point. But another touch point I believe that works is that engaging people directly. Coming from the education field, I truly believe that if you want to get people involved, you engage them, make them feel involved in this thing. So we just had our first inaugural event was about 3 weeks ago. It was We the People University. And that is for the community. And it's set up just like a college to where we put classes out that is geared towards community engagement. Some of the classes include how to run for office, how to file for an appropriation through the state. There was something else that happened. And you go online and you register for the class that you want to go to. We have another one coming up in October that's going to be dealing with redistricting. That's going to be dealing with the new vote, SB 90 and the voting. And so that's how we're kind of dismantling misinformation, is putting information out there to our community. Because truth be told, many people think that black folks, if I put on a fish fry and that's all y'all need to get out to vote. Black folk want to know information. Don't minimize us and think that we don't want to learn. Yeah, we want the information that's needed in order for us to be educated voters. And so that's two of the things that we're doing. And the last thing we're doing is that if we know COVID is real and it's happening, so I told my staff, this is what we're going to do. If the people won't come to us, we'll go to them. And so what we've been doing is going into people's households Get 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 of your friends. Let's sit in your backyard and let's talk about what's happening in Tallahassee. Let's talk about the politics. And we've been calling it the Sit with Chev. And it's been great. We sat down with so many people who, truth be told, they did not even know that their state legislature is the one who bring money back into the district to be able to have your city commission or your county commissioners to be able to do the functions that's needed. And so we're doing these basic things, not just misinformation on voting, but misinformation within the entire political process at large. And I just believe that because people do want to be engaged, and so we're giving that to them.
Okay. The league started out trying to educate people. It was primarily women because they'd never voted before, and we've held on to that role of education. We do speakers bureaus. We actually train our volunteers so that they're become well versed on the topic that they're giving information on, and we're open for business. As I said earlier, we would love to give those presentations, short or long, and according to what the community needs. So we have that role. We have a very well-used website, our Facebook. We also post information about the basics, about redistricting, about Senate Bill 90. We're in litigation against Senate Bill 90. So we just want people to know what the changes are in the voting rights. So we're very open and available to share information. That is one of our big premises.
So education is 100% the key, and I'm going to start by giving you 3 terms. The first term is misinformation. Misinformation is like false information, urban legends, gossip. It may not be malicious, but it's still wrong. Disinformation is intended to deceive. This is your quote-unquote fake news, fabricated content, or just scams. And then the final category, which is the worst of them all, malinformation. And this is not only intended to deceive, but to harm. So this includes things like hate speech, harassment, violent language, things that are insightful. The reason I give you these definitions is because we need to be on guard for all of them. And sometimes we get confused because we heard, Susie called me and she told me that this is what you need to do. So what we try to do is say, be aware that all of these things are in play at any given time and rely on your trusted sources. And you're so fortunate because we have 3 of them right here. And so what we try to do is just to promote the trusted sources. And how do they become trusted sources? Exactly what the other panelists have said. Create relationships. But here's what I'm going to say to you, because I'm not from Florida, so I'm going to just say it. Relationship is a 2-way street. So if they reach out and you don't show up, it's going to be problematic. And so attend the backyard settings, go to the websites, check in with your county supervisor of elections. It's a 2-way street. All of this information is available for you. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because you all already know this. So what I want you to do is all of you all who know Jaquan and Shaquita, I know y'all related to them because I'm related to them. And what I have to do is I call my list of 15. These are my nephews, my nieces, my cousins, my kids' friends, sometimes my kids, unfortunately, who will call and ask me for a sundry of things. And before they get that, they know they have to go through the checklist. What is the checklist? Did you vote? Before you ask me for gas money, did you vote in the last election? Have you gotten your friends to vote? What have you done today to make a difference in your community? You are an influence of one, and you can share all of this information that you're getting today with your own list of 15 or 20 or 25 or whatever.
That's great. So when my younger brother moved to Florida and I found out he had not voted and he had been here he had not registered to vote and he had been here about 6 months at that time, I stopped talking to him. I did. So he registered and he got his girlfriend registered and then they told me they voted and now they're active in helping somebody's campaign. I'm like, okay. So anyway, that's great. So I want to, in no particular order, anybody who wants to kind of jump into this, but a lot of misinformation lives on social media, right? And a lot of people get their news from social media, as people were talking about earlier in different sessions. I mean, and especially the media session, a lot of news comes from Facebook and Instagram and, all these social media sites. And so what are you all doing with specifically with respect to social media to get messages out about voting or correcting information or validating information? Anybody who wants to jump in, what are you doing?
I'm going to start first because I actually work with a network of organizations that are doing nothing but scanning the internet and writing algorithms to try to track down mis, dis, and malinformation. And one of the things that we do is we put together a series of toolkits frequently so that folks can share out correct information all the time. Because the reality is, some folks are not going to find Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, or unfortunately the League of Women Voters, because the people who are seeking that information aren't really the people who need it. But what they will do is follow each of you. What they will do is check out what's going on your Instagram stories and what's happening in your Twitter feed. And sometimes they can't wait to see what you're about to post next on Facebook. And so if we can sneak in a cool graphic or a little piece of information or call out now what I try not to do though is I don't repost stuff. But what I will do is reference it or else put out the positive information. Because what you don't want to do is repost crazy. Because then crazy takes over, and then unfortunately the real information gets lost. So what I will say is, I heard something crazy, but this is real, or something like that. And while I'm on social media, the person who handles a lot of my social media is sitting right here, and I brought her here because I knew there were going to be so many gems dropped. I wanted her to make sure that our social media reflected all of that in real time. So as you can see, she's sitting there posting away. So if you have any other information, please see her because she will definitely get it posted.
So we use I utilize my social media a lot. So if you, my Twitter, yeah, I use it to drag the governor, really. So you can follow me, Chevron Jones, all of my Instagram, Facebook, and everything. And we use that to put out right information, but I also use it to tell the truth. Because, my colleagues are not being truthful over these last few months. And so we use that to not only just spread the truth of what actually is happening in Tallahassee or what actually is happening in D.C. We, just like you just shared, Ms. Ali, is that the fact that we look for people within our circle to share this information, because I get it. There's a lot of people they don't do politics like that, but they do you. And so you have your friends and you have your family members who they trust you, they trust your word. And if you're sharing some things, I'm sure you're not sharing crazy stuff. So people, they will share your stuff. And so we try to put content up, thanks to Miles and Emily. We try to put content up that is shareable. That when you do post it out to your family, they don't have to question whether this is a trusted source. And I'm very careful, and I mean this, I am very careful of what I do post on my social media for that very reason. Because people are looking to see, what are you posting? Is this true? Because everything else is fake news. I mean, this is the one trusted source that you can go to. And I'll end with this, right? I think we're finding a lot on social media. I mean, it's true, everybody has an opinion on things, right? And everyone wants to comment on things that's happening. But I also look at social media as a true engaging tool to be that you also, as individuals, can debunk what people are saying. Like, if you know what the truth is, say the truth on that comment section. If they posted it, then you can't say you're gonna want me to respond to it. And so, if you can respond to the stuff stuff that's misinformation, I always tell people to respond to that stuff also. And so, whether it's my post or whether it's a post that come from the supervisor elections or for the League of Women Voters or from Ms. Holly, it doesn't matter. Yeah, be able to share material that you believe is true, that your followers can be able to say that it's a trusted source.
The League has a pretty active Facebook and Twitter and things of that nature, but I'd have to say that's something that we need to grow and utilize much more actively, and for many of our members and the generation that we would like to have their attention and get them excited about a lot of civic issues.
So yeah, like I mentioned before, we are building that right now, and it's something that I feel like is critical, not just for my agency, but really for any government agency really needs to make sure that they're in that space. Like they need to be there to make sure that because one thing is that it seems like all the people who want to post crazy things, who want to say crazy things, they're all online and they all have a big following, and then they can put their information out there. And what I think is really important is that we have more of the reliable sources, more of the real sources of information take a more active role in social media. And that was one thing that I saw wasn't really happening before I took office, and that was something that I made sure we took a big focus on. But even trying to go even further, we're with the big four that at Broward Votes on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. But we're looking at some of these other ones, like Twitch is this platform where kids go and play video games. My son, uses that, and there's TikTok, of course, that we've all heard about, which we have an account. I have not posted yet because I'm not an entertaining dancer. You guys do not necessarily want to see that. But I feel like it is important for us to be in those spaces. So I need to figure out a way to do it, and figure out a way to be able to engage with the full audience that's out there. And I think that's something that all of us as leaders in our own respective communities, have to think really hard about, that social media area is so critical, and that we have to be there and we have to be active.
These are all great comments. Really appreciate that. So I'm going to have some person-specific questions for each one of you, and I'm going to start with the supervisor first, Supervisor Scott. And I want to ask what in particular you and your colleagues are doing around the state. You see what's happening. You see the kind of laws that are being passed that my good friend is Chevron Jones, so I always want to say Chev, but I'm trying to be really politically correct today. But so Senator Chevron Jones, he's trying to stop these bad things from happening, but what are you all doing to combat them? So you see these things coming down the pike, you see what's happening with the Dropbox issues and other things that, these legislators are passing through. How are you all going to operate to, really not make those things kind of null and void to the extent that you can?
Sure, Bernadette, that's a great question. And it's an important question because one thing about our association, we have an association for all the supervisors in the state. So there's actually 67 counties in Florida, and there's 67 supervisors of elections. And I'm sure, as you all can imagine, the overwhelming majority of these people are very conservative. And but at the same time, when this bill was going through the legislature, everybody was against it. All 67 supervisors of elections were against this voter suppression bill. And for that, I'm really, really proud of this group and proud to be a part of that group as they went through and were opposing this bill and said, this is not needed, this is not necessary, and this is actually going to be harmful to all voters. It didn't change anything. It didn't change much. They were successful at taking the bill from being extremely bad to just really bad. Okay, so that's what they were able to do. Now, that being said, I would say that in general, them being a more conservative group, there's just a different philosophy in general for supervisors, that they're more or less focused on making sure that they're meeting their legal obligations, doing the bare minimum of what they have to do their jobs, not necessarily trying to fight to counter voter suppression. So it's a mantle that I feel personally very pulled towards. So here in Broward County, we've taken a few steps that, that I might anticipate that the legislature might push back on some of the things that I've done when they meet in January. But locally, we're making it a lot easier for people to get registered to vote, which is, by the way, something that overwhelming majority of people on the other side of the aisle, they really just don't want that. They want to keep the voting population as small as possible, whereas I believe we need to get everybody active and everybody involved. So what we've done on that voter registration piece is basically change the way we do our voter registration forms to make it so that you can bring that back to us without an envelope or a stamp. You don't need any of that. We have a new voter registration form that we're pushing out through third-party groups. The League of Women Voters is now using our voter registration form. And basically, when people fill this out, they can seal it up, drop it in any mailbox. You don't need a stamp. It's self-addressed. You don't need an envelope. So it's a really creative way of doing it. It also comes with a QR code, so you can go right on your phone and register to vote, sign up for your vote by mail ballot right from your phone. We're also opening up a bunch of satellite offices around Broward County. And the purpose behind that is so that we can extend Dropbox locations during election time. So basically, when the next election, the big election that comes up November of next year, we're going to have a number of Dropboxes geographically dispersed throughout Florida. That's the one thing that I mentioned. I'm worried about the legislature coming back and changing the law on me to try to cut back to where I can only have one. And I'm basing that on something similar happened in Texas. And our state legislature tends to follow what they do in Texas. So as the law is right now, I plan on having numerous drop boxes available for voters next year, and we'll see how that goes if I make it, and make it to actually have that up next year.
That's
But
great news.
That's what we're doing.
Great news. So, Senator Chevron Jones, what happened in this last legislative session? I mean, my gosh, tell us what the dirty, inside view. Give us the hot and the skinny on what happened.
First, I'll tell y'all this. Y'all can see all of this foolishness on your phones if you download the Florida channel on your phone. Matter of fact, committee starts on September 20th. And turn your notifications on, because when you turn your notifications on, you get a notification for every committee before it starts. And you can find out whatever committee you want to tune into. Hope you tune into education, because that's the committee I'm on. Anyways, let me tell you something. This was the because they could a legislative session. That's what it was. And so I wrote it down. Here are the numbers. You have a 78-42 House. You have a 24-16 Senate. So we're in the minority, not the super minority, but we're in the minority. So imagine how, when we heard about Senate Bill 90, I'm a freshman senator, just got elected, and I see this bill come across my desk, Miles put it on my desk, and I was like, WTF. What just happened? I was like, I know this is not how we're about to start my freshman year as a senator. And they did. Not only was it the voting bill, it was the transgender bill. It was, you just go down the line. They just started doing all type of things this legislative session. And one of the representatives said, a question was asked, why are y'all doing this? And he said, because we can. Now, mind you, although you have 120 House members, you have 40 senators, and people ask me, when people ask me about me just representing 527,836 people, I tell them that's the people in my district. But when I push that green button, that's for all 21 million people in the state of Florida. More particularly in District 35, which is the largest black district, where I represent, the largest black district in the state, and the third largest in the country. I'm not about to sell out black folk for the games that y'all playing. And that's what they did this legislative session. So much so that we were sitting in committee and looking at the bills that came forth, that they would not even allow for people who were out of state, who wasn't traveling due to COVID, to be able to testify. Now, how does that even work? Everything was remote. And the only way you were going to be able to testify is not even be able to come to the committee room in the Senate. In the House, they have their own foolishness happening. You had to come to Tallahassee, go to the Civic Center to testify. And when your time was up, the chair would tell them to turn your video off. This is the type of legislature who they used this year, because nobody was in the Capitol, Nobody was in the Capitol, so they did whatever they wanted to do. But I'd rather not talk about the problem in that instant, right? I'd rather speak about, since I have y'all ear on this, I want to be able to take advantage of it. In Tallahassee right now, and this is no offense to anybody else, I see so many people come inside those committee rooms, but I do not see our people come in there to testify, to talk about how this hurts our community. I sat on the transportation committee, Bernadette. And my first time being on transportation committee, which is the third largest funded agency in the state. And they were doing a presentation about the roads and the contracts of the roads. I asked the secretary the question, how many of the projects that you're giving out are going to Black and women-owned businesses? His follow-up response was, we have a minority department, and I stopped him in the middle of his statement. I don't care about your minority department. How many Black folk you giving contracts to for the $13 billion that you have that we gonna have access to? So that's what I want to talk to you all about as far as access is concerned and the power that we actually do have when we show up. Y'all feel me? When we show up, we can change the dynamics in these decisions that's being made, especially with somebody like me who is the only, listen to this, Bernadette, the only Black senator who represents Miami-Dade County. Where in the redistricting year, they're trying to change it. So this is not just foolishness that happened last year. It's foolishness that is happening because they can. And until we get to a place, and I'm just going to be real because we're here, and I'm here on Saturday too. Until we get to the place, until we become serious about stop electing our friends into office and electing people who are actually doing the work, because I'm going to tell you, just because they are our color, they are not our kind. Because I sit in Black Caucus, Bernadette, and I hear these people and their conversations that they're having, and they think they can do what they can do because they are 636 miles away. And they're doing it on the back of their constituents because we are not responding to them. And when people ask me about the foolishness that's happened, I say that we have an obligation to my district. You can ask my staff. I tell them every single time. We show up every single day to work because that is the expectation that the people have of us. And the foolishness that happened in this last legislative session, I'll tell you this. My ask is for organizations like Women in Power.
Women of Color Empowerment Institute.
Y'all do got power,
everybody say it together. Women of Color Empowerment Institute.
Okay.
We also say WOSI, so.
Okay, I'm here for that. Y'all do got a lot of power too. I'm gonna say that. But I will say this: as I've been sitting on panels, I've made it my business that I don't want to talk about the problem so much so that I don't follow up with what are our action items, what we can do, and looking at organizations such as this organization to where, when session comes around, how can we chip in to bring 50, 100, 300, 1,000 people, women to Tallahassee to talk about the issues that's happening within our community? My office is going to sponsor a bus. Please get on it to come to Tallahassee because I'm sick of us not being at the table to deal with the issues that we're dealing with. And I know I might be on a rant, but since I got the mic and since I got your ear, I'm taking advantage of it because I believe that we have the power to make the changes that we need. Yes, a lot of foolishness happened. Yes, it will continue to happen, but we got the power within our communities to continue to show up, to show them that you're not going to continue to take advantage of our people and what our movement really is. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. And I almost feel like, I'm trying not to have us clap after everybody because everybody's saying something so good. But let's move on to Ms. Schoon and tell us, I know the league does a whole lot, and you've talked about that quite a bit today. But I'm wondering, what can we do as just citizens, just individuals, to support the league? I mean, I know you can always join in membership and all of that, and I'll just plug Women of Color, join Women of Color too. But I'm wondering, what can we do? What can the average person do to support the league and your initiatives?
Well, I really appreciate that question. Certainly, membership is available, but you don't have to be a member to work with us. The league, under my leadership, we are actively looking for trusted sources in the Black and brown community. We realize that the League has a lot of expertise and knowledge in a lot of these areas, but we want to share that out. In fact, we've trained over 500 groups to register voters, even though that's what we do. There's more work than any one of us can do. So you don't have to necessarily be a League member, but we would love to connect and share that information. We have on our website the training because there is a method to registering voters. You have to now sign up with the state to become a third-party voter registration organization, even as an individual, and you have to comply with certain laws, or you can get a misdemeanor or a fine. So these are things that we like to offload and share. You can work with us as a League member because we have a lot of training programs, and we bring a lot of people who are not civically minded and train them up how to do all of these things, and we offer that to everybody. So that's one entry point. And then the opportunity to get in your community and work with people that you know and care about and share the knowledge. So these are things that people can do. We say write letters to the editors. A lot of people don't feel comfortable writing. Well, the League would be happy to do a training on how do you do a letter to the editor. It's not as hard as it looks. A lot of the things that I've heard mentioned myself, I feel like, oh, I wish I knew more about that. The old Cecile would say, I've got to be an expert before I want to get out there because I don't want to look stupid, right? But the situation is so dire. We've all got to get out there, regardless if we're going to become the expert. We can get the basic tools from the League of Women Voters and other organizations, or from congressmen like Chev sitting next to me, doing a great job providing the 101 classes. The opportunities are there. We've got to get over ourselves and realize that we can impact. You do impact. I wanted to also mention, the League has a program, and this is a little bit of a segue, that we created to train lawyers so that they can help people get their voting rights back. Desmond mentioned it, but it was actually something created by the League. We have 2 CLEs, continuing legal education programs, and those programs are free. They're on our website. Anybody can take them. We got them approved by the Florida Bar for 2 credits each, which that would normally cost, those 4 credits, maybe $600. What we're asking lawyers to do is learn how to use the system to help people get their voting rights back. And so sometimes you have to go to court, sometimes you have to draft papers. We have all of that available. So anybody who's legally minded or wants to do the research, that is a specific thing that you can do. And I want to just quickly say, I myself have done it for about 12 people. When I looked at the records of 3 of the 12 people, they didn't even have a felony. It had been pled down or dismissed, and these were people who are not voting for years. So there's opportunity. Even if you're not a lawyer, you can learn to read the records. Many of the people, their reading level is at 7th grade or lower. They're afraid. They don't know how to get the records. The records cost money. So there's a lot of very specific things that we can do, and that's one of them.
Great, great. So this gives us a great opportunity to kind of segue into Holly Holiday has on the screen there, and I think it's. Have you? Okay. So okay. So we'll what we'll do is Okay, very good. So what we'll do is with this, Holly is one of the coordinators, I guess, of a group of women who meet pretty much every week online, and she is sort of a go-to person on policy issues and different things, and we talk, and these are women from all over the country, mostly Black women, and we talk about the same kind of issues we're talking about right now. And so, Holly, I want you to share, just on a national level, some things that group may want to get out to more people, that you think is key, that we're all in line with. One of those things that you, or a few things in some of the remaining time that we have, that you think it would move the needle.
I can do this in very few amount of time. First of all of you all can go to Blackwomentakeaction.org. I'm wearing the T-shirt. We have been working tirelessly around voting rights. If I took my jacket off, you could see all the organizations that are part of it, including Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote. That's Blackwomentakeaction.org. We are weekly organizing rallies and marches and letter writing campaigns and petitions. And you can be a one-click activist, you could be a show-up activist, and you can be all the activists in between. So that's one concrete thing. The other thing, how many of you all are part of some organization, some group, some something? Okay, so here's the challenge. I'm gonna challenge you to challenge yourselves in one of those communities or a few of those communities to focus on taking one concrete action, whether it is participating in a hearing, showing up to testify, teaching people how to testify, writing a letter to the editor, organizing a trip around to the Capitol. Find one concrete thing that you can do inside the organizations that you're already members of to raise your leadership to the next level. Because the last thing and the most important thing that Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote is about is elevating Black women's political leadership. And political leadership is not just getting elected, although you definitely should do that, because there's way too many of these elections where these folks is unopposed. Nobody is challenging them, and we should not let, and I'm gonna be real clear here, mediocre white men govern our politics. Many of these people don't even have a college degree, haven't finished high school. You would be surprised. And Black women nationally only make up 4.8% of all state legislators, and yet that is where, as Chevron talked about, I'm sorry, Senator.
No, please.
Okay, Chevron talked about, we family now, talked about where the money to your local community comes from. So if you're mad about it, run for it. Running ain't for you, then get on a board. Serve as an appointment. Appointments ain't for you, show up and volunteer for somebody's campaign. Campaigns ain't for you, raise some money for your organization. Be a leader. Actually, just be the leader that you are, but think about how you're gonna take it to the next level. And then finally, if you love social media, like I do, one hashtag to follow, and it's the one that Bernadette mentioned, is Win with Black Women. I lead a lot of the social media around Win with Black Women. It is a collective of intergenerational, intersectional Black women. We are on every single platform. If you want to hear more, you want to talk more, you didn't get to ask a question because you didn't, but you'd like to, join me every Tuesday, 8 p.m. on Clubhouse. You don't know about Clubhouse? I'll get you on. Because we're going to make it happen, and we unapologetically have a conversation, a strategic conversation about the political issues of the day. Get informed, get involved, and start leading.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. Senator Chevron.
Can I follow up real quick on something? You just sparked something. Because I got it in my nose, and I was going to use this opportunity to tell y'all, we need more Black women to run for office. I'm so serious. We need, and Monica is shaking her head, it's true, we need more Black women to run for office. At the last Week of People University, we did a how to run for office class. Nancy Mateer was who is the commissioner in Coral Springs, the first Black woman to be elected in Coral Springs. She did the class, and it was amazing. And so much so that we're going to do another how to run for office class in October. I would suggest that even if you don't think you want to run for office, if you mad as hell about something, just come listen, right? Just come listen. Maybe you might be that mad about something that you want to run for office. But even if it's just not that, Holly, you just said something and I wrote it down. Volunteer for a campaign, donate to a campaign, or organize a fundraiser for a campaign, or join a social movement. If you are, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. I'm sure if you are part of a sorority or any other group, ask those groups, what are we preparing to do in this next election cycle? I just wanted to put that out there.
That's great. That's great. And so in 2 minutes or less, Cecile, and I'll get to you, Supervisor, tell us something about redistricting we didn't know and what we need to look out for.
Okay. I did mention that we have the Fair District Amendments. What we're doing, there's a group called the Fair Districts Coalition, which the League is a part of. We have asked each of our representatives to sign the Fair Districts Pledge, which means to be fair. Don't try to draw the line so that incumbents are controlling and win. don't harm, racially minorities or language minorities. We've asked them to adhere to that, and very few have signed. So you can contact your representative and say, why haven't you signed this pledge? You're just pledging to follow the law that came from the Citizens Initiative. I believe you have, but I'm not sure. But bottom line, it's this people don't want to be held accountable, even to say I'm going to follow the law. Now, they promised to follow the law in 2010 and 2012, and they failed to do so. And after a lot of litigation and a lot of state tax dollars fighting, doing the right thing, we got the information and ruled in our favor, and we had to get the lines redrawn. We don't want to have to go through that again. So stay on top of your representative. Let them know that you're watching. Pay attention. Get more information from the league and other organizations. They just made their committees. They're going to be starting. I think the first meeting is September? The 20th. Right. So a lot of it will be on the channel. It'll be on Florida channel. The Florida channel. Right. So get involved, watch, write, contact the league if you need any more information. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll give the last word to Supervisor Scott.
Well, I appreciate that. I would just like to close by mentioning the two bills that are working their way through Congress right now. One is For the People Act, and the other one is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You all may remember the last time I spoke, I talked about changes we're making at the local level and how I'm a little bit concerned that Tallahassee is going to respond to what I'm doing by changing the law, because that's exactly what happened in Texas. It's the state legislatures in certain states are specifically making laws to try to hurt one side against the other, or to specifically hurt certain communities. And in the greatest democracy in the world, something like that just shouldn't be allowed. We need a new structure and a new framework at the national level to make sure that the state legislatures and that local officials are not able to disenfranchise people. And that's why I hope you all will engage with your members of Congress, as well as the two U.S. senators we have here in Florida, and make sure that these people are aware of how important it is for us to get the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. That's all I have. Thank you all.
Well said. Please give our panel a great round of applause. We really appreciate all of you all. You brought great information.